Broadcasting from the Camp Grayling Studios, this is Sporting Journal Radio. Presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX.
That's a new personal best pike here.
Now here's your host, Bret Amundson.
That's right. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bret Amundson. We're going to talk fishing, hunting, other outdoor recreational opportunities, mostly fishing today. I fish and always will. One of the things that we like to do here on this show is just kind of find ways to ensure that we can preserve these traditions of hunting and fishing and give you tips to make you better while you're out in the outdoors as well, too. And I'm very disappointed that I missed the Trout Opener last weekend in Minnesota. We're going to talk to some people that did not miss it. So we're going to find out how they did for trout, kind of where they went and what they used and what their go-tos for lake trout, stream trout, whatever type of trout they might have been targeting and what you might want to target. We'll try to help you be more successful out there on the hard water. So Scott Mackenthun is going to be joining us, Neve and also Hunter Madsen to talk about their trout opening weekend adventures. We'll also get fishing reports from Joe Henry up at Lake of the Woods and talk about that guest ice store. He was on the Weather Channel, and we're going to find out how that experience went for him. And also Lucas Mertens from Haybale Heights Campground and Resort will check in and give us a Devil's Lake fishing report as well. Dan Amundson is right over there. How you doing, Dan?
Hey, doing well.
Who is our sponsors this week?
Yeah,
Who are our sponsors this week?
Our sponsors this week are Haybale Heights Campground and Resort on Devil's Lake. Plan a trip to Devil's Lake at haybaleheights.com. Ottertail Lakes Country. Find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com. Lake of the Woods Tourism. Plan a trip to Lake of the Woods at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. Tazen Lake Lodge. Plan a trip of a lifetime. Catch giant lake trout and pike at tazenlake.com. OnX Hunt. Always know where you stand with OnX. Mid-Migration Outfitters. Rent one of our fish houses or start thinking about spring snow geese in Minnesota. Visit midmigrationoutfitters.com. And Prairie Sportsman. Watch the new season coming up on your local PBS station or watch episodes anytime at prairiesportsman.org.
Well, we did some spearing the other day, and one thing, if you've been out on the lakes recently, we got a little bit more snow out there now. Now, some of the northern lakes have had quite a bit of snow already this winter, but as you move further south, there hasn't been as much until that recent snowfall that put a bunch more snow on our ice. Thankfully, because we had one of the Pioneer PBS vehicles, and we were going to go do some spearing around Alexandria, and I asked the guy that we were with, I was like, hey, are we going to be able to drive this? I think it's a Captiva or whatever it is, kind of one of those little...
Not a truck.
Not a truck, yeah. Thank you very much. We're going to be able to do that out there, drive this thing out there. And he goes, oh, yeah, we got the road plowed for you. So thankfully, we were able to go out on one of those plowed roads. Plowed roads are an interesting subject in Minnesota because it depends on what lake you're on and who plows that road. And if there's a business involved, it can get become a little bit of a touchy subject. So we're going to discuss that a little bit more later in the show. But this weekend, we're very excited about the new Prairie Sportsman season starts up. Here is the little sneak peek of the first episode starting Sunday night at 7:30 on Pioneer PBS. On the next Prairie Sportsman, we visit the Western Minnesota area conservationist Roger Strand on his hunting property and Brad and Christy Fernholes at a remnant prairie on their farm. Dan, you filmed that doe right there that you saw.
That doe should be in our freezer right now.
That was a big, meaty doe right there. And so we're going to learn a little bit more about what Roger Strand's doing to create this deer haven on his property and how he's managed it. So we'll teach you a little bit about deer management and what he likes to do in this episode of Prairie Sportsman, and also learn about him battling polio. He had polio when he was like 2.5. So he's going to tell that story. It's a great story about his dad bringing him to the hospital as well. And I'm not going to give away any more of that. You got to watch the episode Sunday night, 7:30 p.m. on Pioneer PBS, and then on TPT Live. So if you're in the Twin Cities, TPT Live, February 19th at 12:30, the Minnesota channel, all the PBS stations, February 24th at 6 o'clock. You'll be able to watch at 6 p.m. And then it'll also be rebroadcast on Wisconsin PBS, Iowa PBS, South Dakota PBS, and Wyoming PBS. So lots of places to watch that new Prairie Sportsman. The new season starting up this weekend. Check your local listings, as they say. Dan, you did a little bit of fishing here recently. How'd that go for you?
Yep, we sure have been. We've been out moving houses around with the MMO ice guides on these local lakes, and we've been finding some walleyes, finding some perch, finding some crappies, finding some bluegills. It's been a kind of a plethora of fish, but we were chasing walleyes, or I was chasing walleyes earlier this week, and they're there. They're still biting. They're biting actually better than I expected. It was warmer, but it's cold now, so I'm sure things have slowed down. I haven't gotten out since this cold front, but they were snapping, but you still get a little finesse with them. But rattle spoons, kind of like this one here, if we can get it to focus up on the camera, maybe not. We'll put a picture in.
There went for a second.
We'll put a picture in, and
what is that?
You guys can look. That's the Northland Coffin spoon. That size I was showing you there is the 1/4 ounce, which I haven't been finding as many fish with. It almost looks a little too big for them. Downsizing to the 1/8 ounce seems to be the ticket, and that's kind of been the ticket for everything, is downsize, especially with this cold weather. Perch and panfish, I've been using almost all tungsten. This is a 1/28 ounce tungsten Northland gill getter, and that's been catching all my perch, all my panfish, and downsizing has been the ticket. I can't say that enough. If you're getting fish to come stare at you and they aren't finishing, downsize. Put a wax worm on, put a spike on, put a plastic on, downsize to that minnow head instead of a full minnow. Anything you can do to try to get those fish to commit, and don't be afraid to put a bobber down or a rattle reel down too. That's always a tried and true method of catching fish. We've heard Joe Henry talk about it a bunch, the 1-2 punch, and it's been working, and fish are biting. Despite these cold fronts, they're still out there. Despite the snow, we're still able to get around. People are out plowing roads like we've talked about, so travel's pretty easy, and the weather actually melted some snow earlier this week, so it's pretty easy to get around, and fishing should continue to be good.
Walleyes and crappies, that morning and evening bite has kind of been the ticket for those fish in particular. And Dan, I used a hook the other day that I had never really used. I bought it a couple of years ago. It sat in the tackle box. It looked good. I heard all about these lipless cranks and how good they were. And I'd never really used one a whole lot. And then I used one for walleyes here the other day. Do you have one similar to it right there?
I do.
Because I don't have mine with right now.
Actually, but stuck to each other.
Mine was a perch color that I used. And man, right before sunset, this thing was just on fire. There were a couple of times where I would drop it down, and before it even hit the bottom, I was hooked up with another walleye. So don't be afraid to use. And so it was nice. I don't think I used any live bait at all, any minnows that day at all. It was all artificial with one of these lipless crankbaits. Don't be afraid to go big sometimes. It had a rattle in it. So something big and noisy to bring them in. They sometimes when the bite is on, it can be a lot of fun to catch fish like that. Unless you go to Canada, then it's kind of cheating because they just don't get the pressure that we get up there, and you can use a lot of different hooks to catch a lot of different fish and a lot of big fish. And I want to put a plug in for my boys up in Saskatchewan right now, because now is the time to start planning some of those summer trips. Get up to Canada, get up to Saskatchewan. These Saskatchewan and these Canadian fishing lodges and outfitters need the business, all right? They all have struggled a little bit with these border closures that they went through, and now there's obviously some travel mandates to get up there. These people need our business. They rely on American fishermen to come up there and anglers to utilize their businesses. So we've got some lodges in Saskatchewan. If you want to catch trophy walleye, we've got a lake that you can catch that the world record walleye came through the ice out of. Trails End Outfitters. Check them out at trailsendoutfitters.com. We got a lake with some of the world record lake trout in it, Tazen Lake Lodge. Go to tazenlake.com. I also caught a 50-inch pike up there this year. You saw that in the intro to the show. And, of course, Camp Grayling. Now, Camp Grayling is a new lodge for us. I got up there for the first time last year. Our deluxe outpost at Rio Lake. It's one of the most beautiful lakes I've been on up there, and the walleye fishing was unreal. I caught my first grayling up there at Camp Grayling this year. Trevor Montgomery caught a 50-inch pike out of there, and I caught probably a 36, 37-inch lake trout. So there's big lakers, big pike, nice walleyes with billions and billions of them in there, and of course grayling up there too. So if you want a unique Canadian adventure, check out these Saskatchewan fishing lodges, Tazen Lake, Camp Grayling, or Trails End Outfitters. All right. We have more lake trout talking. If you want to fish lake trout here at home yet this winter, we'll tell you what you can use and some places that you can go. We've got Scott Mackenthun, Neve and Hunter Madsen coming up later in the show. They're going to tell us about their trout openers. But we also have Thor Nelson with us. Thor, how's it going, man? We'll bring him on.
It is going great.
Good. You were out for the Trout Opener too, it sounds like.
Yeah, so I was out for the opening weekend. I didn't actually end up fishing on opening day. I had to work that night. But then that Sunday we went out. We went on a smaller lake that is known more for quantity than quality. And we fished from like 11 a.m. until 5:30, and we didn't even pull up a fish. Marked quite a few small ones, so we're thinking that the lake probably got stocked this year because it seemed like there was a bunch of just like 12 to 14 inchers swimming around messing with us. But the only thing we actually caught that first day was a perch. And then the next day went to a totally different lake, and we were lucky enough. Every single person in the party, which there was only 3 of us, but we all landed a trout. So the biggest one was 28 inches. It was a real fat fish. Mine was 21, and then our other buddies was 22 inches. So a couple of really nice eaters, and then a bonus big boy. And 2 of those fish we actually pulled out of 140 feet of water. I think we hooked up with them at around like 110 feet. So the big one definitely put up a fight. Mine, I just horsed up more or less, and it was there wasn't much fight to be put up with that one. But that 28 incher definitely put up a good bout coming up the hole. But it was a blast. It was a great day, and yeah, definitely can't wait to get back out there and do it again.
Fun fish to catch. There you go. That's a blast catching Lakers through the ice, especially up in northern Minnesota. It's pretty neat. What were you fishing with? Looked like a pretty long rod there too.
Yeah, so I actually got it right here. It is a Elliott Greenback, so that is a 42-inch heavy action rod. And I was actually fishing with this tube, and it is, I forget which brand it is, but I got it the other day.
White tube jig.
Yeah, just tube jig, 4 inches long. And it's got a nice trailer treble hook. That's the only reason I caught that small trout is because I actually had a sucker minnow head on the back of that, and he hooked up on that. I doubt that he would have been able to get the big part in his mouth just because it is a pretty wide hook gap. But nice heavy bait for getting down to those depths fast because, it sure takes a while to climb that water column, if you're reeling up or putting down in those depths. But, we were using that. Another person at a party was just using a 1 ounce hair jig with like a 3-inch plastic paddle tail on the back, all white. And then another person was using essentially the same thing, just like a 3-inch paddle tail plastic with a 1 ounce jig head. So, yeah.
I used a 12-ounce jig up in Saskatchewan last summer to jig for lake trout. You want to talk about
how deep were you jigging there?
It was about 100 feet.
Oh, man.
But you want to talk about getting down to the bottom fast. That got down there real fast.
Wow. So was that like a really big profile on that bait then, or was it just small and dense?
It was a nice sized jig head on it. I wouldn't say it was anything too wild and crazy, but had a plastic body like a tube jig on it that we used, and it glowed, and it was crazy. And setting the hook, I think I caught a 46-inch lake trout, I think, jigging like that. And you set the hook into something like that, and it's like, that's just a mountain I'm hooked into down there, right? Like not even a boulder. I'm hooked into a whole mountain down there. It's a lot of fun.
It's pretty similar to perch fishing, right?
Very similar. Very similar to pulling up a perch. All right, Thor, congratulations. Glad you got out there for opener. Thanks for telling us the story. Appreciate that. We got some more. We got some more trout talk coming up and also some fishing reports. Joe Henry at Lake of the Woods. We're going to talk about the role social media has played in the outdoors, the pros and cons of it as well. We'll hit that with Joe. We'll also talk that was an article from Scott Mackenthun is where that was kind of the genesis of this discussion. So we'll talk about it with Scott in a little bit here too. We'll find out how things have been going up at Devil's Lake with Lucas Mertens at Haybale Heights. But first, I want to show just a real quick video before we get into that from my time. I would spend some time photographing some pheasants and shooting a little bit of video. And when you hear people talk about the need for habitat for wildlife, especially when we've had some of these cold winters, cold days like we've had here recently, and some of this snow, like a corn food plot, here is a little bit of cover and a little bit of food for this rooster right here. And watching them fly out in slow-mo is pretty cool. We'll be right back.
852 million acres of public land, 147 million private properties.
All in the palm of your hand.
The #1 hunting GPS app just got better. With hundreds of custom map layers, 3D and topographic maps, you can easily scout on the road or at home before you go. And now you can get important weather details, CWD detection, and even know what crops have been planted where. Get the most trusted hunting GPS app ever made. OnX. Know where you stand with OnX.
All right, now it's time to go up to Devils Lake, North Dakota to check in with Lucas Mertens from Haybale Heights Campground and Resort to talk about that big lake to the west of the Red River. Lucas, how's it going?
Hey, Bret, everything's going pretty good. We're nice and cold and the sun is shining, so I guess that's what winter is, right?
I mean, that's winter. Like, it's below zero here in Minnesota too, but North Dakota, it's just winter. You just deal with it. You deal with the wind. It's the way it goes. And I remember when we came up and filmed up there in the winter a few years back, it was 45 below wind chill or something like that, and we were in a snow bear, and snow bear just moved us around. You deal with it. It's fine. It's not that bad.
I think that's we're probably not temperature right now. Actually, I am looking at the thermometer. It's -9, and we got some wind, so I would say, yeah, we're 25, 30 below right now. But the sun is out, so I guess everybody that lives up north, I think we get kind of used to, hey, the sun's out, so it's a pretty nice day, right?
Well, it's funny how that works. I was outside the other day, and yeah, I think it was still below zero, but there was no wind, and the sun was out, and I was like, man, it's hot today.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of weird how we get like that up here. And we'll get a nice day in February here where it's like 25 or 30, and there's people walking around in shorts and Crocs and things like that. But
anybody listening down in the southern part of the United States, their heads just exploded.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
But I mean, that's the beauty of what you do up there with those snow bears is you can get around. You don't have to get out and crank up a house or pack up your portable. You can just pick up and move from spot to spot wherever you need to go. And they're on tracks, of course. And up until this last snowfall where I'm at, we didn't have a ton of snow on the lakes. Now we've got quite a bit of snow on the lakes around here. What's your snow situation like up there, Lucas?
We got a lot of snow on the lake, and we've had snow pretty much all winter. So, like, travel on the lake is I would say tracks is your best bet. There might be a few people venturing out with wheels yet, but I think they probably have a couple shovels with them too. So definitely the snow bears are really shining this year with our cold weather and all the snow. Fishing has been pretty good. Our perch bite has been pretty solid this year. The walleye bite has been pretty decent. So we're kind of grinding away now. We're in the middle of January here, and we still got probably a good month and a half of the season left. But everything is shaping up so far, and it's been good.
I always look at perch as a bonus fish, and obviously Devil's Lake, it's not necessarily the bonus fish, might be your target fish. But when you can go to a place like Devil's and catch, a bunch of nice walleyes like that, and then just a pile of really nice perch, it doesn't get much better than that.
No, it gives you something. Devil's Lake's got some pretty generous limits too, as far as your daily limits and your possession limits. So if you get up to Devil's Lake and obviously not everybody hits it on the head up here. I mean, it's, we get cold fronts that move through and not all the time do the fish bite. But if you do get up here and you hit it right, I mean, you could take a lot of fish home and have a lot of meals there.
Well, looking forward to getting back up there, hoping to make it yet before winter's over. And if people want to try to get up there yet before winter or start planning a summer trip, what should they do, Lucas?
Yeah, they can go to our Facebook page. We keep that up to date. They can go to our website, haybaleheights.com, or they can call me direct on 701-351-3130.
Lucas Mertens, Haybale Heights Campground and Resort, Devil's Lake. Thanks for the time today on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Ice fishing season is here. This winter, plan a trip to Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Not only will you have the chance to catch their legendary perch, but this year, Haybale Heights has been catching big walleye after big walleye. And they're doing it from a mobile, comfortable snow bear. No matter how cold it is outside, you're warm and toasty on the inside. Learn more and book a trip today at haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com.
All right, now we're going to talk to Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism to get a fishing report from that big lake in northern Minnesota. Joe, are you still in your makeup from your big TV appearance earlier today?
Makeup. If I have any makeup, I borrowed it from you, buddy.
They didn't make you get all dressed up for TV. You know, I had to do that for Prairie Sportsman once. We did a live something, or I don't remember what it was. We did some live stuff for Prairie Sportsman. I'm like, all right, we'll just go back into the dressing room there, and they'll put your makeup on. I said, no, I'm good. Well, you'll look real shiny. I'm like, I don't care.
Well, I will tell you, I was going to wear my nice Lake of the Woods sweatshirt. You know, it's kind of what we wear. And I thought, I'll better put on my collared shirt just in case, you know. And so I just dulled up a little bit. I was on, we've been getting a lot of PR, as you know, for the Northwest Angle Guest Ice Road. And it appeared in USA Today this week. I was on the Weather Channel live this morning about it. And it was quite a deal. You know, they I think they would have preferred I had a little better lighting in my office, front light and back light. But, you know, I'm just not wired that way, and I know you do because you do this for a living. But yeah, no, it was a good experience, and of course, you know, whenever you can get the word out about Lake of the Woods to people that you know have no idea of what it's like to drive on ice, it's real interesting. The host asked some kind of neat questions, and everything from how long is it, and how thick is the ice, and what kind of trucks? I mean, can you drive any vehicle on the ice road? What do you do about traffic going back and forth? I mean, how do people maintain control? You just, everything was kind of foreign to them. So it's kind of fun.
Is that online somewhere? Can we find that? Your appearance on the Weather Channel, do you know?
You know, it could be. I don't know. I did a live this morning, and I don't know if it's online or not. Usually they put links out, but if they didn't like the lighting, maybe they who knows?
We'll send Dan on that mission, see if he can find it. What a great way to be able to get up the angle if you don't want to go through the hassle of the border crossing, or if you don't have snowmobiles, or just want a nice, easy drive, and just kind of a unique adventure in itself. You kind of feel like you're on ice road truckers for a second there.
Well, and some people, when they drive out there, it is part of the adventure. Some people just drive up with, as a couple, some buddies, two couples, whatever. They drive up just to go up there and have lunch and a couple Diet Cokes and come back sometimes the same day just to experience it because it's unique. Most people go up there and stay and ice fish. And of course, some people snowmobile. But, the other thing, too, I should mention, it's $250 round trip per vehicle. And, of course, you get some keyboard warriors out there criticizing $250. People are crooks, and they're making a fortune on this thing. And, I'll tell you something. Just like anything in life, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And I'll tell you, at $250 per vehicle, they're just hoping that they can make a profit this year. And that's why they're doing it. It's a private company doing it. But, you got to understand, and Brett, I know you know this, but, they say it costs about $1,500 a mile for an ice road, and that's if you're lucky. You know what? It doesn't have to snow. All it's got to do is blow, and you got to plow. You got cracks that are constantly moving, ice upheavals. You got to constantly bridge them and reset bridges. You got water pumps, gas pumps. You got snow plows that break. You got trucks that break. You got labor. You got there's so much expense that goes into it. So again, at $250, some people are going to balk at it. At the same time, you know what? You get 4 people in the car. You're going to stay for 3 nights. 12 and a $250 is $20 a person per day. You know what? To get up to the Northwest Angle without going through the border, not a bad gig.
We filmed an episode of Prairie Sportsman about it last year. The first time that happened, you can watch it on YouTube or Prairie Sportsman, Facebook, etc., and learn a little bit more about making that road and just how much work actually does go into it. Joe, have you? This is one of those things that you see on social media all the time. I've seen a number of pictures of it lately, and I'm not trying to call anybody out, but have you had anybody that you know of that has set up on the ice road and started drilling holes to fish on it?
Not yet. Not that I know of. We don't really have law enforcement up there for that, but there's other ways to take care of business. Well,
it's usually posting about it on social media. It's the social media justice, which I'm not always a fan of. Like I hate it when people use social media to call somebody out. And I understand there needs to be some people are deserving of public shaming, and that's kind of the town square now is Facebook or Instagram or whatever the case may be. But like if somebody gives you small fries instead of large fries at your local fast food and they post all about it and trash the fast food restaurant, that's just somebody that just made a mistake, right? But when somebody plows a road on a lake for their business or for their personal use, and then somebody pulls up and plops down their house in the middle of it and blocks track. Well, yeah, there's one right there. Don't be that guy. Yeah. Like, and I get it. He's trying to be out of the way, and there's a lot of snow on that lake, but that's just bad etiquette.
Well, and some people just don't understand what it does when you do that. Number one, it blocks traffic, but number two, it can flood out a road. Right. Because there's a lot of weight in those snowbanks, and you even see some water on the ice because just the weight of those snowbanks, and that's a lot of times why they plow wider roads. It makes it so that if you get a lot of wind and the snow's blowing through, you're not going to have that one or two lanes get blocked with snow. It'll blow through. At least if it fills up 2 lanes, you still got 2 lanes open yet. Also for the snowbanks, if the snowbanks flood, he'll still take the middle of that road, and you're going to be okay. But again, it's not etiquette. The other thing is not etiquette, and you got a lot of keyboard warriors out there, of course, in today's world that they do not live by the Stephen Covey's mantra of seek first to understand and then be understood. For sure. They'd rather just be understood. They don't know, but they don't listen. And and I say listen, just understand, because God dang it, man. When people talk about balking at paying, $15 or $25 to jump onto an ice road. Yeah. Yes, it's public water. Yes, it's public ice. But can you imagine somebody that would go off of public access and then go on to somebody's plowed ice road that they have worked on all winter long and not charge them or not want to charge them? I just, I tell you, I just kind of scratched my head. Is it legal? Technically, it is legal. But you know what? There's also something people talk about doing the right thing. And, whether it's Mille Lacs, Lake of the Woods, any of the lakes that have plowed ice roads, these men and women who do these roads, they work hard. They go through a lot of equipment. It is not cheap.
Yeah, that's always a tough one because lakes are obviously public. So person says, well, I have the right to be here as much as the next guy. And some lakes where there aren't guide services, or maybe guide services are on different parts of the lake, or there's just plowed roads. Somebody just went out and plowed a road, so you don't know if there's no sign. But obviously those types of roads that you're referring to obviously have signs, and they ask you to pay, and somebody did provide a service for you. Yeah, is it public? Absolutely. But somebody provided a service for you to be able to get out and access that lake. So, it's the right thing to do to pay him for that. But Joe, this could be a longer discussion that maybe we don't have time for today, but the role of social media has been a topic that's it's a recurring topic, and it's come up recently in the SJR Insiders group that we have on Facebook, on social media, of course. And it's about the role of social media in the outdoors right now and what effect it's having on hunting and fishing. And you can make the case, the argument that there's some positives and negatives on both sides, but how do you feel about the role social media is playing in the outdoor world?
It's a double-edged sword. And, I'm the director of tourism for Lake of the Woods. So I see it, part of our role is to, educate and inform and make people aware of the incredible natural resources, the opportunities, things like that. And, social media for us is a great way to keep in touch with people. We have when I started at Lake of the Woods Tourism, we had 1,200 Facebook followers. We worked on purpose by design to build up our following because it is a good way to reach people. Yeah. We currently have over 136,000 followers on our Facebook page. So we get a lot of reach. And, we also have other avenues of social media. It's great in that regard. Now, the thing that isn't great is you have what are called keyboard warriors. And you got these people that are pretty... They can be rude, they can be blatant, they can be very uneducated and speak confidently on topics that they might be totally wrong on, or whatever the case might be. And that's part of social media, and there's ways to deal with that. If you can hide comments, if people gets too bad, you can not invite them back to your page. There's things you can do. That is rare. It's few and far between, but there certainly are a lot of opinions out there. Bret, sometimes, we have to tweak things if conversations get a little bit too rude, I guess. But, overall, I kind of let things go and let people have their opinions with one another, as long as it doesn't cross the line of hurting somebody's reputation or
personal.
Yes, yeah, things like that. So, yeah, I know it's definitely a double-edged sword. Some people just hate it. Some people love it. Some people use it as very self-serving at times. Mm-hmm. I think it's all of the above. And again, I mentioned how we try to use it. Personally, I'm just like you know, I'm out in the public a lot and such. But, you know, really, I'm kind of a private person overall, and I don't put too much personal on my Facebook page. Once in a while, you know, I will, but that's just me and just my personality. You find other people that are very personal. You know everything that's going on in their lives, and that's okay for them. You know, if it's okay, every time I think you do that, you're taking a risk, I think, of scrutiny, you know.
Well, once you do that, you can't claim somebody is invading your privacy because you put a lot of it out there. It's tough. And I feel like there is a lot of good that's done on social media. Obviously, I do a lot of it for my job and what we do here. It's like having a big cable or satellite TV package, right? And all the channels you used to be able to flip through. You could get a couple hundred channels to flip through. Social media is like that. Everybody's got their own channel now. It's just a whole lot more channels. Some you want to watch, some you definitely don't want to watch. But it comes down to when I always talk about when, you know, certain outdoor magazines would put the 10 best public land hunting places in the United States, and one happened to be right where we used to deer hunt in Wisconsin. And the next year that place was overcrowded, and everything that was brown was running for its life or getting shot. So social media or attention, promotion of a particular place can increase crowding in that place. There's some negatives, but it can also highlight some unique opportunities that you may not have known about, or introduce you to something new. So my bottom line with it, I think, Joe, is that in the end, our lakes, particularly in Minnesota, have quite a bit of pressure on them. I think between COVID and social media, it's increasing the pressure a bit, and I just think it's going to lower limits. I think that's what's going to end up happening, right or wrong. And I think there's a different philosophy. Dan and I have talked about this quite a bit lately. There's a different philosophy in fishing now. Catch and release is becoming a bigger part of. That's one thing about the younger generation I'll give them credit for. I feel like they are a little more into catch and release than some of the old traditional fishermen out there, the anglers that are out there that are used to going out there and trying to get their limit, because limits weren't as easy to get in their day as they are now with the increased use of technology. That's the other aspect. So it's increase in technology. You could say, you know, forward-facing sonar or live imaging. You could say wheelhouses. You could say social media. You could say COVID is increasing pressure. But I think the philosophy of catch and release is starting to pick up.
Well, yes, and I think that's great. And, you know, it's almost like that. Remember the DNR? It was a number of years ago. You'd see billboards and a big campaign for catch and release. And they almost had that recycle symbol on there. And, you know, that kind of went away for a while. And I've always really enjoyed that. It's almost a prideful thing to be able to catch and release, in my opinion, you know. But I think you said something really important. I think that social media is part of this. But, you know, technology is the other part of it. You know, you talk about public hunting. I hunt some public land, and there's more and more people showing up in the public land. And, you know, when you happen to run into hunters, it's like, well, how would you happen to find this spot? Oh yeah, no, I'm starting to use those new apps now, the new mapping apps and everything. And it does such a good job of showing public hunting that now you have these little honey holes that everybody knows where they're at. Well, is it any different when I talk to somebody on a lake that dives and they're like, oh yeah, you know what? I got some rock piles out there. I dive them and I know where the inside turns are. Well, now a real good map chip comes out on, you know, one of our, you know, Navionics or Lake Master, or whatever the case might be, Garmin. And now everybody knows where that inside turn is, you know, so the secrets aren't there anymore. But see, that's a combination of both. And it all plays to the same thing, is putting more pressure on our natural resources. So I think, to your point, we have to make sure that we keep our natural resources sustainable. I'll tell you one thing, Brett. You know, up at Lake of the Woods, last year we had 2.9 million angling hours on our ice.
Unreal.
And that's the trend. I don't think that's going to go down because ice fishing's popular and we got a great lake, right? We got a wonderful lake for fishing. You know what? Tell you what, if we didn't have that slot limit in place, you know, on Lake of the Woods, 19.5 to inch walleye to 28-inch walleye has to be returned to the water immediately. You know, those are your breeding class fish. If those fish didn't have a slot limit on it, I'll tell you what, those fish should be go home in coolers.
Mm-hmm. That slot limit, I think, I've talked to so many people that have businesses up on Lake of the Woods or that fish up there, and that slot limit is about the best thing that could have ever happened up there. And I think we'll either see reduction in limits or slot limits on more lakes. We should get a fishing report from you, too, while we're talking here, Joe. How has fishing been up there on that big walleye factory in northern Minnesota?
Yeah, it's Lake of the Woods. We have millions of walleyes, we have millions of saugers. Fishing's usually pretty darn good. The thing of it is, things change as the season progresses. Mm-hmm. So right now, as we get into midwinter, we have over a couple of feet of ice. Those walleyes and saugers are getting a little more spread out. So it's really important that you fish every single fish, meaning, having electronics is helpful. Making sure that when you get a fish that comes in, you work that every single fish. And that can be the difference between having 5 fish in a day or 10 fish in a day or 20 fish in a day. When I say working every fish, paying attention to what's getting them to eat. How are you jigging? What kind of what colors are you using? What size lures? Is your dead stick producing? In your fish house, are you trying different things amongst the different anglers and paying attention to what's working the best, and then duplicating that for the day? There's a lot of things you can do to catch more fish. Big part of it is watching your electronics, looking for suspended fish, seeing how they're cooperating, and then adjusting.
Well, Joe, if people want to learn more about making a trip up to Lake of the Woods, whether yet this winter or start planning a summer trip up there, what should they do?
Yeah, find us on social media. But actually, check out you can certainly check out our Facebook page. We have a lot of current information on that. That's Lake of the Woods Tourism. Otherwise, check out our website, and that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
He's going to be getting so many requests for autographs now after that Weather Channel appearance. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Come ice fish the famous waters of Minnesota's Lake of the Woods, the walleye capital of the world. Experience full-service resorts featuring heated fish houses, ice transportation, meal plans, and sleeper house options. From the Northwest Angle to the South Shore, Rainy River, and Baudette, the Midwest's #1 ice fishing destination. Walleye, sauger, perch, and northern pike. Minnesota's Lake of the Woods, best fishing anywhere. For more information, log on to lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Looking for winter adventure? Might as well pick a place with over 1,000 lakes. Ottertail County, Minnesota is in the middle of everywhere, offers a simpler pace, and has something for everyone. Find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com.
Well, the Minnesota Trout Opener was last weekend, and while I didn't make it out, I wanted to talk trout here on the show so I can live vicariously through our guests. Now, I have kind of a relatively new appreciation for trout fishing, whether it's Lakers or stream trout. Our guests this week, they all have the trout itch, and I want to ask them how they've been scratching it. First off, we have Scott Mackenthun with us. Now, you may have read some of his articles in various newspapers around the region. And Scott, I think I did this last time you were on, but I like reading your bio from Instagram every time I have you on the show here. He's an amateur angler, mediocre fish squeezer, half blanked hunter, lousy sport, bad attitude. He reads at a 6th grade level, which is not true. And but he can fry a mean slab of bacon. Scott Mackenthun, ladies and gentlemen, on the show this week. Scott, how's it going?
It's going well. I mean, having the chance to get out and fish and spend time talking to you, what could be better?
That's right. We'll focus on the fishing part. That's probably better. We also have Marie Neve with us on the show. Marie lives up in Duluth and spends a lot of time chasing fish. Thanks for being with us this week.
Thanks for having me. How
was your trout opener?
We ran into some sketchy ice conditions where we were trying to fish. So it was a struggle. We had to kind of replan things on the fly, but
all right. Well,
we found some safe ice, and
that's always a bonus. I'll ask you a little bit more about that and have you go into detail here as well. And Hunter Madsen joins us too. He's been spending a lot of time learning Lake Superior in the last year or so and learning more about its trout secrets. And is with us too. Hunter, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
That's a big lake to try to learn, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It can be pretty sketchy at times, that's for sure.
Overall, how's it been going?
It's been really great, actually. It was a learning curve when I first started out. It was really tough. But once I started to figure it out, fish wanted to bite, that's for sure.
It can be really good fishing, but the lake can obviously be fairly intimidating, of course, as it should be. It's a giant body of water. But fishing it's just strange to me at times to think about that fishery being essentially in our backyard. You're literally probably in your backyard when you live up in Duluth up there. But to have that type of fish, I mean, it's like living next to an ocean, really. And having that here in the interior part of the United States, basically northern part of the United States. It's a unique body of water, and I want to ask you a little bit more about that as we talk on the show this week. But Scott, let's go back to you, because you have a tradition of fishing a lake that my family has a tradition of fishing of, only we go up in the summer. You go up there in the winter. You probably make multiple trips up there, but you go up there in the winter, up off the end of the Gunflint Trail there to Saginaw. You were up there last weekend?
That's correct. Yeah. Very fortunate to have married into a family that my wife's grandparents retired up there after a long career at Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing, and that was kind of their dream to be able to have a big log home on Seagull, actually on Gull, between Seagull and Saginaw. And I've had a chance to fish up there in the winter. Once I acquired a snowmobile, I knew I wanted to start learning the lake and fishing it in the winter for lake trout. And eventually we started kind of a family trip up there, and it's been a blast to learn it, as you put it, both summer and winter, auto charting the lake, finding different spots and kind of figuring it out. And there's not a lot of people that get a chance to fish it because it's remote, and access is, it is a designated wilderness area. So you have to work to get into it.
And our family is a 3M family, and we've been spending time up there. So many connections. Sag is on the border, so half of it is in Canada, half in the States, or whatever the size may be for each of the countries. But did you stay on the Minnesota? Can you get across? You probably need an RABC to get across now, don't you? Were you able to get across, or just stay on the Minnesota side?
Stayed on the Minnesota side. You are correct. Past, COVID has been a little bit challenging with this for the last 2 years, including this year. Typically, you would get a remote area border crossing permit, go into Canada, then be able to walk across and pull your things into portions of the American side. This year, is definitely more of a challenge. You can operate a snowmobile in a small corridor running up the Seagull River to the Canadian border, and kind of move off that corridor, and access from there. I saw folks on skis and snowshoes, and I just toughed it out for about a mile in boots on Saturday, and then did about a half-mile run to a different spot one way on Sunday.
So do you go up on snowmobiles, or how do you go up the channel?
Yeah. Sorry, that's the idea. You go up that corridor, which is the limited corridor for being able to operate a snowmobile, and then get off the snowmobile and walk into your spots from there.
So that corridor, if you're going up in the summer, you can only have motors that are no larger than 20. It's a 25 horsepower limit. Is there any kind of restrictions on the size of your snowmobile, or is it just, hey, take the snowmobile up, you're good?
Yeah, no restrictions on the snowmobile, but you're right in pointing out there's that 25 horsepower limit, and it's kind of a mapped out portion of the lake where it's permitted. You basically can't go west of American Point, and I forget what the limits are on the eastern boundary. I haven't really pushed out that way too far, but it's an interesting exemption. There are some others in the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness Act that was kind of an addendum to the original Wilderness Act of '64. So worth reading up on and checking things out at your respective entry points.
Well, it's interesting. I know getting a remote area border crossing permit's been tough lately. Have they been restricting them, or they're not giving them out at all? Yeah. But when you can go, and when we go in the summertime, so I have a 16-foot boat with a 25 horsepower motor on it, and everybody else on the Canadian side, there's no size restriction on your motor. So I always have to tow all the other boats up that channel. That's always my job when we go up there. But that's pretty unique area. It's so much history up there, and beautiful, of course, and the fishing is good. So if somebody were to, like, if you had your location on your phone right now, and somebody has your location, like you share your location with them, do they think you're still up there then?
Oh, yeah. So that was one of the lowlights of the trip. Was for as avid an angler as I've been, ice angler, I should specify. I've lost plenty of phones through the years. I've had water go over my waders. I've had, it's a lifetime of professionally and personally, always being in and around water, working with fish or fishing or waterfowl hunting or what have you, I've lost my fair share of phones, always from immersion. But as smartphones have developed better waterproofing technology and the ability to be immersed and rubber grommets to protect them from moisture damage, I haven't lost a phone in a while, but this one was a total loss. For the first time ever, I did drop a phone down an ice hole.
Come on.
We did that. My buddy did that in South Dakota one year, but I think it was 18 feet, but it was crystal clear, and we had an underwater camera down there. We went to the hardware store and bought a landing net and then a bunch of PVC and taped them together and made this big long retrieval system. And after about 4 hours of work, we were able to get the phone back. How deep of water was it where you were at, Scott?
I was in 42 feet with a mixture of boulders, and it was getting late in the day where it was dark. I wouldn't even attempt to try to recover it at that point. So it was a goner.
That's tough. Well, you know what? When you're up there, it's kind of, you probably couldn't use the phone up there anyway to communicate, but it's sometimes kind of nice to get away from communication devices and get rid of those phones a little bit. Marie, have you ever lost a phone or dropped anything into the lake through the ice?
Absolutely, on more than one occasion. It's my best piece of advice for someone new to ice fishing is never set your phone on your lap.
That's the problem, right? Because you'll forget it's there and you'll stand up or you'll move or it'll slide off.
You can't feel it through your bibs.
And I think that's something about like being in a sleeper house or just a wheelhouse, some sort of enclosed fish houses. I think it's the way they build them. There's probably cell phone companies that have conspired with like Ice Castle or something to build angles and everything. So when you drop your phone, it bounces one way and it like pinballs all the way to the hole. Inevitably, it ends up in the hole and in the lake. So you found some sketchy ice originally this weekend, but you were able to find some safe ice out there?
We did, yeah. Our plan was to fish a pit lake in the Grand Rapids area that's stocked with Isle Royal strain, so it does produce some really nice fish. And even with good ice later season, it's really inconsistent. So we went out with spud bars and right through two cracks.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so we changed plans. We were already in the area. So we ended up fishing a put and take lake, and we caught very small lake trout. But you know what? I would rather have fun on the ice. It was a beautiful day than kind of be worried and nervous all day. So there's plenty of time to get back there, and
absolutely.
I will.
Yeah, absolutely. And even small lake trout, they're fun to catch.
Sure.
Trout in general.
Absolutely. They chase the same. Yeah.
Just angry fish. So much fun. Was there a lot of snow on that lake then that had the sketchy ice?
There was enough. I mean, it's I think over 300 feet deep, and you know it's a pit lake, so it's filling, and it was enough that the slush and the thin ice was a no-go for me personally. And maybe a few years ago I would have ventured out, but those days are over now.
Sure. Well, you obviously like to fish. You spend a lot of time doing it. What got you into fishing?
My first, I guess, fishing addiction was muskies.
Muskies? Really?
Yeah, and I think that's why I like lake trout so much. I love visual fishing, and you don't get a lot of that in the winter. But with trout, sight fishing for rainbow trout, or like I mentioned, watching lake trout chase up and down, it's kind of a game of cat and mouse. Yeah. It's just a really unique experience. So that's kind of how I got into lake trout, just the visual.
Muskie fishing, you don't hear many people say muskie fishing was their first. It was kind of how they got addicted to fishing.
Yeah, I did things a little backwards.
I'm surprised you can still afford anything after starting off with muskie fishing. You probably got really good at casting after trying to catch a muskie forever. How was muskie fishing? Did you get some nice fish?
I did, yep. I finally have a boat instead of a canoe that I'm figuring out a new piece of water where I live. So it was actually pretty good this year. Yep, I got a couple nice ones.
I grew up on a muskie lake in Wisconsin. Our cabin was on a muskie lake, and we never really targeted them too much. We would catch them once in a while, bass fishing or casting, or we'd go out and try to catch some muskies too. But I'd always go out in a canoe when I was a kid, and I would have these, they were probably mid-40s, maybe mid to high 40-inch muskies, but they'd always chase it up to the canoe, and then they just sit kind of next to the canoe and taunt me a little bit. And I always wondered, like, what am I going to do if I actually catch one of these things? You know, in a canoe. Did you catch some muskies out of canoes?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Before this year. And it's fun. And my canoe is a beast, so I can stand up. You know, it's really stable.
Nice.
Just be prepared, have your tools, have a net. You don't want to make it as easy on the fish as possible. And in a canoe, you need a little extra
That's
help
tough.
for that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I didn't have any. Like, I was a kid. I had a fishing rod. I was probably lucky to have a life jacket in the canoe with me. You know, I just would paddle out in front of the cabin and cast. Hunter, what made you want to start fishing Lake Superior?
Well, I've been going to school here at UMD in Duluth this is my senior year, and it's just always there. It's always from whenever you're at a high point or you look out into the horizon, you can see Lake Superior. And there is other fishing up here, but not too much. But I've just known, like, there's lake trout in there, there's salmon, anything's possible. It's a little dangerous, but it's going to be fun to figure out. And I had a friend who he had a 16-foot boat, and I told him, oh yeah, I got one too. He's like, oh, you can take that thing out on Superior, no problem. You just got to watch the wind and know what you're doing and have a escape plan if all of a sudden the wind switches, and you'll be good to go. So
how did the first trip out there for you go?
So the first trip that I ever made out on Superior lake trout fishing, we were trying to jig, and it was not too windy, but it was out of the northeast, so the waves were huge. And we're just kind of bobbing around, not catching nothing. And of course, had to figure out what we were doing, and ended up going out and trying jigging out of McQuaid Harbor a couple more times. Didn't have any luck. And after that, I realized, okay, I gotta get some gear together to do some trolling. And once I got that, and then it was pretty straightforward from there.
Do you, and Marie, I'll ask you this question too, but do you fish the tributaries for steelhead at all, or do you fly fish at all or anything like that?
I have in the past, but I'm not too much of a fly fisherman, so I didn't have very good success, but I've heard good things.
It's a pretty neat experience, and honestly, I go with a spinner.
I haven't gotten into a lot of the tributary.
No, it's a lot of fun when the steelhead run. It's pretty cool.
I've had a chance to do it a couple of times, either out at the Brule or fishing in spring or fall. You know, really unique opportunity for folks to try out. It does take a little bit of time to figure things out, so definitely learning curve. It's
just kind of a scenic way to fish too. It gets a little combat fishing, I think, at times, depending on where you go. But it's pretty neat. And with the Brule, you can get into those browns over there too, I believe. And Hunter, when you were fishing by Schwamken there, you were getting into some browns here recently?
Oh yeah, we really got into the browns last weekend. Well, I had never been out there. It was free fishing in Wisconsin this last weekend, and I saw a TikTok on it, and I was like, oh no way. Well, might as well make the trip out there. And went out there and kind of just was like, we were catching coho, catching whitefish, and I was like, man, I wonder how we're going to get into these browns. We really got to kind of figure something out here. But the salmon were still coming through, and sure enough, a group of like just 5 big marks came in, and all the other marks kind of went away, and that's how I got my first brown. And the rest of the day, we just kind of picked them off slowly. Most of them came off bottom, but that first one was suspended pretty high up.
That's cool. I haven't spent a lot of time targeting them. I actually want to go do that Lake Michigan deal where they catch them. Then they catch them like right off the docks in the winter. They drill holes next to the docks over there in the city, which just seems odd to me, but that'd be a lot of fun to do. And I think that's probably the first time I've ever heard of anything positive coming out of TikTok. So I guess We'll take that. But you bring up something about social media, and Scott, I want to talk to you about an article that you wrote recently. It spawned a number of conversations I've had recently with a lot of people, and I want to ask all of you guys about the role of social media in hunting and fishing. We brought this up in the SJR Insiders group and had some pretty interesting responses there. Since you wrote that article, what have you been hearing from people about the pros and cons of social media in regards to the outdoors?
Yeah, and so what I wrote was just sort of a reflection that is a much larger topic. Obviously, it can really branch out, but basically, there was a podcast that had a discussion about the role of social media, and the host of the podcast and his brother were kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum of their thoughts on social media, and there might be some localized issues of crowding and people and what do we tell about our experiences on the water with social media. But I think by and large, I think most of us, at least myself, see it as a positive, a way to get new people into the outdoors, to try new experiences. And part of my article is just talking about what are hunter and angler motivations. Why do you go out and do these things outdoors? And I think for the most part, we have a lot of compelling reasons to get out, and social media is probably not the lead thing, but it helps people enjoy the experience.
It's a hot button topic for sure, and everybody, just like any other topic in the outdoors, everybody has an opinion on the subject, and I think you can look at both sides of it. And really, social media really is just media. I mean, it's like earlier in the show, I was talking to Joe Henry about it, and social media is like remember when your cable provider or satellite TV, all of a sudden you had 400 channels to choose from. That's kind of like what social media is to me. It's like everybody has their own TV channel now. Some you want to watch, some you don't want to watch. Some you can't stop. It's like watching a car wreck sometimes. You can't stop watching it. But there's good and there's bad to it. And I think it's all, again, it comes down to whether or not social media is good or bad. It's more about the user and how social media is being used to be good or bad. Because you're right, there's a lot of ways to introduce people to new outdoor experiences, and social media is just what everybody's doing nowadays. It's just where everybody lives, good or bad, or maybe not on TikTok. I don't know why anybody be on TikTok, but there is definitely a lot of benefits to it. But you're right, there can be some hot spots that can be given away, and then that all of a sudden you'll have crowding there. And
well, no, I'll just jump in to say that I think we got to bring some numbers to the table on this if we really want to hash it out. Part of that discussion, like you said, this is where R3 rubber meets the road. What are the limits? Do we have enough supporting habitat? Do we have are people too crowded? And that was a concern that was brought up with this, and other people have brought it up. But to me, I know this is a group of Minnesotans or Upper Midwest folks that are talking here today about trout fishing. Generally, there's enough places for us to spread out, and there's enough water, and there's enough public lands, and we don't deal with it. And when we look at the demographics and we look at license sales, we do see these declining trends. So I'm not too concerned that we're bringing too many people into it. In fact, I've had conversations with a lot of folks about seeing less hunters on the landscape, not running into many people at the duck launches like I used to 20 years ago. Not as crowded at a public launch or a trailhead. So I guess it's all where you are potentially.
Marie, how do you feel about TikTok? Let's get your opinion on.
I don't do the TikTok.
What do you think about?
I don't watch them. No.
Yeah. What do you think about social media in the outdoors?
Yeah, as far as social media goes, I think there's pros and cons. Outside of what you guys touched on, pros, it can be a resource for folks just kind of getting into fishing and hunting. A good way to network is, following people that fish with, conservation-minded tactics and that sort of thing. Cons, one thing that I've noticed, especially with ice season, is it seems to be a competition, is who can get out first. And it's earlier and it's not always safe. And I feel like people, they got to post that picture. They got to be the first one out there. And also just people keeping fish for the picture, keeping piles of fish just, because they need to post it for whatever reason. And From what I've seen, those are the cons of social media, but I think there's good and bad.
I've seen a big trend on social media with a number of people, a number of brands too, and I'll give them credit for being that way. And it's less about those piles. They're trying to make an example by showing less of the pile photos and more about the experience photos and, telling a story and the adventure versus, showing, 6 dead walleyes on the ice or whatever the case may be. And I think that's important. And I think showing that limits aren't the measure of success is what everybody that, people like us that may be some sort of in some sort of influential or communicating position need to keep communicating that message that limits aren't the best measurement of success. That being said, limits are kind of fun, but that's the beauty of catch and release. And have you, Marie, in the time that you've been fishing, obviously being a muskie fisherman, you were probably a catch and release had a catch and release mentality from the beginning. Do you keep a trout to eat once in a while?
Once in a while, I do. The inland lake trouts have really good salmon-y colored meat, so I'll keep a few of the smaller ones. As far as Lake Superior goes, if you can get into the leans, some of the smaller, I think, silvery colored ones, those can be good eating too. I smoke those, but primarily catch and release.
I was just going to ask you, what's your favorite way to prepare them?
Yep, and I don't smoke them. I've got a deal worked out with some friends that do a lot of smoking. So as long as there's enough that they get to keep some, they do the smoking, and then I make lake trout dip out of it usually. Oh,
interesting. You brought up one thing, and maybe this is for a different conversation too, but the different types of lake trout. Not everybody might realize there's a couple of different species or strains, maybe, or what, I don't know what the right word is of lake trout in Superior. There's 4 different classifications of lake trout. That seem right? I think they might have dropped it down to 2, but I think it was 4.
The Siskoettes, the red fins, and there's one other one in the middle there.
A humper.
Anybody? Yeah, humper. Yeah.
Those Siskoettes, those are the big fat ones, right?
Greasy ones.
Those are my favorite.
The ones you want to catch, but don't eat. Yep.
Yeah. So I fish in Saskatchewan all the time, and we fish on Tasman Lake up there, and we have the smaller. They don't have the research on that lake yet to determine if it's like Siskoettes and leans, but that's got to be what it is, because you could troll a shoreline and catch 100 of those 2-3 pounders, and then you can go out deep and catch. I think we had one that we figured was 72 pounds a couple of years ago, but they're just big, gluttonous, meaty fish, and they're just so much fun to catch, just so strong. But that's what I figure. It's the same kind of deal as Superior with the different classifications of lake trout like that. What about brook trout? Do you chase brook trout at all?
No, I don't do a lot of stream fishing. Primarily lake trout. If I get over to Schwamgen Bay, you'll get into the browns. I have done some rainbow trout fishing. Sight fishing through the ice is really fun.
Oh, that's cool.
When you can do that. Yep.
That's the best. It's like looking into an aquarium.
It is. Yep. And it takes some discipline too, because you want to set the hook when you see it instead of when you feel it. So right. It takes a little bit of getting used to.
That's awesome. Hunter, what about you? Do you keep a fish to eat, or you like to catch and release?
So this past weekend, the browns, pretty much all the browns I threw back. I think I had one where it got a hook in the eye. I kept that one. But yeah, for the most part, I like to throw back bigger fish. And I kind of like the direction everything's headed, where like people are more so glorifying fish releases. And like I see a lot of guys posting videos of their fish releases, and I don't know, I think it's great, the direction it's headed.
And I love to eat fish, so I do like to keep some to eat, but there's something about putting a fish back. There's something about that, and keeping a fishery sustainable and things like that. And Scott, I've been told that brook trout are the best tasting of them. Do any of you have any firsthand knowledge? Would you be able to talk about which ones you like the best? I
don't eat enough of them to break it down that way.
Right. They're good to eat, but more fun to catch. What's the most? Maybe Scott. Maybe I'll start with you because I think I know what your answer is going to be. But what's the most unique place you've gone after some sort of trout?
Well, yeah, so the predictable answer for me is going to be any of the fisheries in the Black Hills. But I'll definitely say when Lake Superior gets enough ice, when we get cold years, I definitely enjoyed that. I've had a chance to do it now a couple of times, and it's been awesome. It's a unique experience. The fishing's been very good. But on the Black Hills side, it's just a diversity of options out there. South Dakota Game Fish and Parks stocks browns, rainbows, brook trout, cutthroat trout, and splake. So you have, and there's lake trout out there as well. So you've got 6 different species to vie for.
And why do you go out there, or what do you do out there?
Yeah, we've got an event called Hooked on Hard Water. It is a fundraiser for the Rapid City Club for Boys. It's a long established kind of, like the name implies, club for boys. It predates the Boys and Girls Club of America, so it's remained independent, and it's just wonderful the work that they do. That's kind of a melting pot community. There's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of issues. So being able to support a program that keeps those kids off the street, pairs them up with mentors, gets them outdoors. It's a really kind of a win-win and a unique program.
When I found out that there's tiger trout that close to me, I almost jumped in my truck and drove over there.
That's right. And tigers, true. I forgot to throw tigers. So there you're up to 7.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's a great cause, obviously, as well too. Where can people learn a little bit more about that?
Definitely head over to the Facebook page, Rapid City Club for Boys, Hooked on Hard Water event. I know there's a banquet fundraiser that you can support a boy. There's raffle tickets to win prizes. There's a lot of cool things. So anyone interested in helping out, check that out.
All right. See, social media doing some good.
Exactly.
Of course. Marie, I want to ask you one more social media question. As a woman who fishes, what do you think about some women on social media who participate in the outdoors and how they use social media?
That's tough. I think, women fishing, getting out there is great. And I support, whether you're doing it with guides, with friends, with significant others, it's great that they're just doing it. But be real about it. A lot of take a picture with the same fish, different hat, that kind of thing. There's no need for it. You're welcome. You're welcome in the sport. Just be real about it. And that's the kind of example that we need to set for kids, for little girls that are kind of looking up to us. So,
Marie, what's the most unique place you've fished for trout?
I'm going to have to go with my backyard, Lake Superior, as well. I'm one of those crazy people that just kind of crosses my fingers every year and hope for a couple weeks of 20 below so we can get out there. Just because it's humbling, really, when I kind of feel like I'm allowed, I'm allowed to get out on this huge, huge body of water on the ice. So that would be it for me.
What's the biggest fish you caught on Superior?
Right around the 30-inch mark. I've had a few heartbreaks, but the biggest iced fish, it wasn't a monster.
Hey man, anytime you get over 30 inches though, that's that 30-inch mark. That's a nice fish. There's nothing to complain about with that.
Sure.
That's good. And they fight, man. How deep of water was it?
I think we were right around 90 to 100 feet. And keep in mind that you can see them, 20, 25 feet down. So it's.
And they were probably suspended. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, that's fun. So I remember when I ice fished Superior, I think one of the most unsettling feelings was we had to drill separate holes for our transducers because of the current and the depth that we were fishing so that we could actually read. And that I think it was Jamie was out there fishing one time and the ice had shifted while he was out there. So I think he realized that the ice he was on was moving. I think it was Jamie who was telling me that. The ice started moving while they were in flip overs or something and realized that.
Keep your eye on the depth.
the lake was changing. Yeah, I think that's what it was. The depth was changing. I think that's how he realized it. Like, oh man, that's a big lake. It's definitely a big lake. All right, Hunter, what about you? Where's one of the most unique places that you've done some trout fishing?
So my favorite place, I'd say it's pretty unique too. It would be Two Harbors, because I can go out there. You actually can catch lake trout jigging for them there, but you can also catch them trolling. And every day you're going to kind of have some sort of a different scenario going on. If it's dead calm, you're not going to have any current. If it's windy, current one way. There was one time after trout season had closed, we were just going out for salmon, and it was a strong northeast wind, but because of the break wall, there was some, like, the current was coming by the break wall and kind of creating some swirls, and the fish were just stacked up in that current break right there. And I don't know, just I've seen many cool things out there, and I love fishing it.
Have you found like a go-to presentation that you like to use on Superior? Color, jig, lure, whatever the case may be?
You know, I've found presentation doesn't matter too much. I'm sure other guys would argue it does. But for the most part, it's where you have your bait, where in the water column, how deep, or how fast are you trolling? Are you trolling with the current, against the current? It matters quite a bit. And there's times when you're going against the current that, like, you look down at the downrigger and, oh, it's swung way out. So it's probably, even though I got it set to 80 feet, it's probably only in 60 or 50 feet. And I don't know. It seems like the fish bite, or they favor one direction. Like when you're going with the current, they seem to bite better when you're doing that. But I'm sure the guys that really have it figured out would say, oh yeah, this color spoon works really good. And
well, it might even vary by the day. But
yep.
I know, and I cheat. I fish in Canada for most of the time. So it's like you put something down there kind of flashy or noisy or something big, and, you know, put it in front of their nose. And a lot of times it's just an aggressive, a reaction bite or something like that. There's just so aggressive. I don't know how many times we've caught big lake trout and pulled, caught them on some sort of 6 or 10-inch bait, and then pulled, a 16, 18-inch fish out of their mouth after we bring them up. So much fun to catch. Marie, when you go out there on a Superior, what's the first thing that you tie on?
White tube.
Yeah.
Is the go-to. Yep. I also like to use, I think they're called different things, but beetle jigs. Essentially, it's just a big chunk of metal, does big circles, and it has 2 tines for bait keepers. White, chartreuse, they can't resist. Just put a big fillet of sucker or smelt or whatever you're using on the back of it. And
how about electronics? Are you guys using flashers? Have you gone into some of more of the live imaging, or like Scott, what do you like to use?
I do use a flasher, but and I'm sure that Hunter and Marie would agree. It's just so exciting when you're fishing for lake trout or other trout species that they just are very aggressive. They chase up and down. You play the cat and mouse game, and I've always said if they had lake trout in southern Minnesota, I don't know if I would fish for anything else. But I'll quickly mention my brother-in-law bought a live scope unit and brought it along, and I had a chance to sit next to him and fish with him on Sunday, and it was pretty awesome. We were in 60 feet. The first hole we drilled, again, we don't have a map here. This is Boundary Waters. First hole that we drilled, we knew we were in the approximate area, drilled up top on a bedrock reef, chopping out at about 10 feet, and then a really steep drop down to 60, and probably over 70 feet is where that drop existed, from 10 foot to 60. So we put the live scope down, and you're able to see that sheer wall, which is probably hurting those fish to you. And then you can extend to open water, and being able to see smelt and ciscos on your graph, as you're side scanning out, all of a sudden they clear out, and you see a mark coming, and you see it approaching, and it's hunting down your bait. Yeah. So you play the cat and mouse game within your cone, but to do it in side scan, you can start to move that bait like it's nervous that it's about to get smoked. So drop it down to the bottom, bring it up high, and to watch these lake trout, as a top predator, chase this thing down and attack from below. chase it up and down, just really exciting. And actually, it was fun. There was 2 eel pout. We found out afterwards, we couldn't definitely tell what they were, but they came down the rock face, stayed on the bottom, dropped down to them, and brother-in-law caught one. So just seeing predator behavior on the live scope and being able to see those fish was pretty exciting.
They're so much fun to catch. And I think you're right. If we had even stream trout, I think, in more readily available here in the southern part of, southern half of the state, I think I'd be chasing rainbows and brookies and lake trout way more. I mean, I like eating walleyes and crappies, so I'll probably still do that a little bit. But man, trout are just my favorite example when people ask me why I like trout fishing, my favorite thing to tell them was we used to sit and watch the underwater camera at the state fair, the DNR fish pond at the state fair. They'd put an underwater camera in there, and you'd see like muskies would kind of float around, and walleyes would just lay on the bottom, and largemouth would pretty much just be laying on the bottom, and you'd just see trout just spinning 100 miles an hour around that tank, just never stop moving.
Very, very cool. It is. They are fun to watch.
So much fun to catch. All right. This has been kind of a rambling conversation, of course, and we could get into some other topics, but I want to play a little trout trivia with you guys. Are you ready to play trout trivia here with Sporting Journal Radio? Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to test your knowledge. Do we have any kind of sound effects or anything for this?
Maybe. We can play this thing again.
Yeah, we can do that. There we go. That's some good music for it. So here's how it's going to work. We're going to ask you guys a couple of questions about trout, and then I'll probably just have you all give me your answer. It'll be multiple choice, so I'll make it easy for you. You can all give me your answer, and then I'll tell you if you're right or wrong. All right, you guys ready? Okay, I'm just going to move this just a hair and move this right here. All right, question number 1, trout trivia. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start with lake trout. According to Wikipedia, lake trout are native to Canada and only a handful of states in the U.S. What American lake were they illegally introduced to and are now considered invasive? Is it A, Lake Superior? Is it B, Lake Placid? Is it C, Yellowstone Lake? Or is it D, Lake Minnetonka? Hunter, what's your guess?
Lake Superior.
Lake Superior. Scott, what do you think?
C as in cat.
Yellowstone and Marie.
I have no idea.
You are wrong. It is Yellowstone Lake, ladies and gentlemen. Yellowstone Lake. Lake trout were introduced into Yellowstone National Park's Shoshone, Lewis, and Hart Lakes legally in the 1890s. They were illegally or accidentally introduced into Yellowstone Lake in the 1980s, where they are now considered invasive. Scott, congratulations. You got it correct. How did you know that, Scott?
My line of work.
Oh, that helps. That definitely helps. Oh, sorry, Dan. Thank you. All right, now you can go back. Question 2. We share some things here, so sometimes we both control the computer. All right, question 2, ladies and gentlemen. This one deals with brook trout. What of Minnesota's native trout species is the brook trout? Which of the following is not a nickname of the brook trout? Is it A, speckled trout? Is it B, square tail? Is it C, mud trout? Or is it D, Dolly Parton? Dolly Parton. What do you guys think? Anybody can answer if you want to.
D.
I think I'm going to have to go with D.
It is
Mud
Dolly
trout.
Parton, ladies and gentlemen. Those are all nicknames of the brook trout. All right, question 3, ladies and gentlemen. Question 3. Which of the following states does not list brook trout as its state fish? Is it A, New Hampshire? Is it B, North Carolina? Is it C, West Virginia? Or is it D, Michigan? Which of the following states do not list brook trout as its state fish? New Hampshire, North Carolina, West Virginia, or Michigan? Scott, what do you think?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think all those states are within the native range of brook trout. It's just a matter of, do they like them enough to make it their state fish? Let's go Michigan.
Michigan. All right, Hunter, what do you think?
I'm thinking New Hampshire.
And
Something about it.
I'm going to go with Michigan as well.
It's a trick question. They all list them as their state fish, ladies and gentlemen. There's 9 states that list the brook trout as its state fish: Michigan, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Vermont, Virginia, and West Virginia, and it's also the provincial fish of Nova Scotia in Canada. All right, question 4. Brook trout aren't actually trout at all. They're char. Which of the following trout are not classified as char? Is it A, lake trout? Is it B, bull trout? Is it C, Dolly Varden? Or is it D, Mike trout? Mike trout. Which one of these are not char? What do you think, Scott?
I'm gonna say the baseball player Mike Trout.
It is the baseball player. Mike Trout is not a char, ladies and gentlemen. Mike Trout is not a char. He is, in fact, a baseball player. Speaking of bull trout or Dolly Varden, have any of you guys ever ran into those fish at all?
No, hoping to get into a dolly in Alaska this summer.
Oh, that'd be sweet. Very cool. All right, question 5, ladies and gentlemen, and fortunately, it is our last question. What was that there, Dan? That was the Dolly Varden. All right. Which of the following is not a hybrid with a brook trout? Which of the following is not a hybrid with a brook trout? Is it A, splake, B, tiger trout, C, a Spartak char, or D, the Brooklyn nets? Which one is not a hybrid with a Brooklyn nets? All right. Anyway, the Spartak, I didn't realize there was something called a Spartak char. It is an intra-generic hybrid between the brook trout and the Arctic char. Scott, did you know that? I bet you did.
Yeah, I did. Just we have a couple of those crosses here in Minnesota with splake and with tigers.
Yeah, that's very cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is your trout trivia. Ladies and gentlemen, your trout trivia. Dan, tell them what they're playing for today.
Well, they played since they already won.
done,
I don't even know if you guys won. I think you were all pretty average at the game, but you're going to get your
Scott
own,
was pretty good.
Well, yeah, we knew that. He's a biologist.
Yeah.
So you're going to get your own coffee mug from Sporting Journal Radio. With
You can
your
put other
own
things in
picture.
there.
Well, it's a coffee mug, but it keeps beverages hot or cold. So there's Scott's, and we've got one for everybody with your picture on it. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, so we made some with your photos on them, and we'll get those for you guys. So congratulations. Thanks for playing Trout Trivia, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for being on the show. Scott Mackenthun, thank you very much. Marie Neve, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
And Hunter Madsen, thank you. Good luck in all your fishing adventures, and thanks for the time on the show today.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.